This is the W from Nailsworth. Nailsworth is a rather nice Cotswold town located at the junction of the Woodchester and Avening valleys. It grew due to this junction as the valleys are key transport routes and due to the suitability for water-powered cloth mills. As a result, the town has quite a few historic buildings. On this street, George Street, are multiple early 19th century buildings. I've labelled some of them. Up ahead is another early 19th century house called High Beeches. Like the other buildings I've mentioned, it's Grade 2 listed. The small wall around the house is also listed separately. In particular, the spring on Watledge Road is a key feature. On the listing, it's mentioned as being early to mid-19th century, and on the side of the spring, it's marked as being constructed in 1858. On Strava, there are several different segments. The longest, called the official full-length W, is 2.57 kilometres, climbing 148 metres at an average gradient of 5.6%. This starts at the centre of Nailsworth, so a bit before where I started recording. Consequently, there was a short descent at the start. The segment ends on the Cirencester Road, which is a bit past where I stopped recording and past the highest point. If you take the descents out, the climb is 2.37 kilometres at an average gradient of 5.9%. However, the bulk of the climbing is done in the segment called Everest Route, which is 1.23 kilometres long with 116 metres elevation gain. On the right here is a track leading to Balls Green. According to Google Maps, Upper Balls Green Mine is located adjacent to the track, although this is hard to verify. Nobody seems to want to advertise it as it's an old abandoned mine. However, from what I can find, it's a stone quarry mining the local Cotswold stone. The maximum gradient on these Strava segments is about 18 to 20%. This is around the corner at the bottom by the cattle grid. But because of the corner, I think it's an overestimate. The 12% marked on the sign is more accurate and is consistent with what my Garmin shows on the screen. Perhaps the defining feature of this climb is the hairpins, which helps keep the average gradient down. Now for a bit of the history of the road. In 1780, an Act passed in Parliament for the construction of the Bath to Gloucester Turnpike Road. This road is now mostly part of the A46. Within this Act of Parliament, provisions for the road snaking up the hillside here was placed. I talk a bit about turnpike roads in my Randlestone climb guide, so check that out. At the top of the climb is Minchinhampton Common. This common was granted to the town of Minchinhampton in the 16th century and is owned by the National Trust since 1913. It has a rich history, starting with prehistoric fields and earthworks. The bulwarks, an Iron Age bank and ditch, can be seen from the road, and I will label them shortly. There is also 2 medieval enclosures, evidence of medieval farming, and a post-medieval rabbit warren. This would have been located to the left of the road and would have featured mounds for the rabbits to burrow into, traps to catch vermin that would predate on the rabbits. The old lodge, where the warrener would have lived, is located in the trees at the centre of the common. Historic England says the warren is first mentioned in 1823, but the naming of the lodge in the 17th century suggests this is considerably older. The common also features the remains of a post-medieval landscape park in the east, where there is also a World War II camp. The common also had 22 anti-glider trenches to deter enemy landings. In terms of accessibility, I rode this climb as part of a 200-kilometre ride from Oxford. That's probably not everyone's cup of tea. From Bath and Bristol, it's about 100k. The obvious place to base would be Stroud, which is a 20-kilometre loop, or 50 to 60 kilometres from Gloucester or Cheltenham. If you're in the area, Huddersfield Beacon and Froster Hill are on Simon Warren's another 100 UK climbs and can be ridden together for a 50-kilometre loop around Stroud. As for my ratings of the climb, it's not very long, especially given half the climb is full flat, so I gave it a 5, about average. The gradient isn't very exciting either. It's well graded, being fairly constant, but otherwise uninspiring, so a 6. The surface, on the other hand, is smooth, making it a 9. The problem is, the good surface is because it's a busy road, with plenty of traffic, so I gave it a 4. The scenery is also limited. There are some nice views over the valley and onto the common, and the hairpins are great, but otherwise the view is quite restricted, with lots of trees and houses blocking the views. As a result, I gave it a 6 out of 10 for scenery, meaning overall it's 5.9 out of 10.